And for more, we can speak to Nibal Farsakh in Ramallah from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society. Nibal, thank you for speaking to France 24 this Sunday. Can you give us an update on just what the humanitarian situation is in Gaza?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. The situation, humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Even the words, it can't be described, the situation. We at the PRCS, Al-Quds Hospital, we have Al-Quds Hospital as well as our emergency medical service center in Gaza are still under the threat of being bombed at any moment. We have received the third warning from the Israeli occupation forces to evacuate Al-Quds Hospital. We have around 400 patients at the hospital. Some of them are in the intensive care units. We don't have the means to evacuate the patients, the elderly people, and people with disabilities. We have not evacuated, and we are not willing to evacuate. Besides that, we have hundreds of Palestinians, civilians who have sought refuge at the hospital. We are calling on the international community for the second time to pressure Israel to stop the evacuation order immediately, to stop a humanitarian catastrophe that is unfolding. We also urge them to hold Israel accountable, to protect our medical missions, facilities, and teams according to the international humanitarian law and Geneva Convention.
So a hospital, its patients, its staff unable to evacuate. How are they preparing for what's next?
Our preparation is that we still count on humanity. We still count on the international community to stop this evacuation order. This PRCS Al-Quds Hospital, besides 4 other hospitals, are still under the threat of being bombed because of the evacuation order. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are still at their homes. They couldn't even evacuate their homes because simply asking 1,200,000 Palestinians to be evacuated under the continuous bombardments and continuous airstrike, besides the great destruction of the infrastructure, and there is no transportation, is not feasible, is unbelievable, is shocking. Is literally shocking. People now live in fear. They don't know if they are going to make it or no, because they even don't know how to be evacuated. In Gaza, there is no organization, no one who's responsible on the evacuation process. People have to make it by themselves. So it's so hard for them to think where I should go, since there is no place in Gaza, and how I should go. We have witnessed targeting of civilians in their car when they were heading towards the south. Israeli bombardments hit civilians' cars, which has resulted in a large number of casualties. Most of them are children and women. On top of all of that, we have, since the first day of the escalation, today at the 9th day of a continuous Israeli airstrikes in Gaza City, which has resulted also on the cut of water, electricity, food. There's shortages in everything. Hospitals are lacking medical supplies, lacking medicines as well. We still also count in the international community to pressure Israel to allow the entry of all the humanitarian aid and medical supplies that you just saw. It's still on the borders.
Yeah, sorry to step in, Nibal. From everything we're hearing, it does sound like the healthcare system has broken in Gaza. Also on the set with me is our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. He'd like to ask you a question, Nibal.
Yeah, hello, Nibal. I'm curious about those who have either begun fleeing or have already arrived in the southern sectors of Gaza. They are arriving in, say, Khan Yunis, which has already been struck by many airstrikes. A lot of buildings have crumbled or in ruins. The conditions there seem to be little better right now than in northern Gaza, and I'm curious, how are you dealing with those who are arriving in an already crowded area of Gaza with no food or water supplies?
The situation is really so much horrible also in Khan Yunis because people are so much crowded. Some of them, they barely can find for them a place either in a school or in any family member if they have relatives in Khan Yunis, with the very large number of people already in Khan Yunis before even the evacuation process. So now you're talking about a huge difficulties of providing the basic needs that we just highlighted, which already we had shortages of it, the food, the water, and everything. So the situation is simply horrible. It can't be described. And on top of that, we still having hospitals who have still shortages of the medicines and medical supplies. As you highlighted in the report, there is many trucks that have a humanitarian aid and medical supply are still waiting at Rafah border. We call on the immediate open of Rafah border to allow the entry of these supplies. The WHO organization, our all partners in the international movement of the Red Cross and Red Crescent, now we are in a close coordinate. We just waiting to the entry of these supplies, and we will be handling the distribution process to all the hospitals in Gaza.
Is your organization and other organizations also perhaps trying to bring pressure to bear on Egypt's authorities to allow Palestinian civilians in Gaza to enter Egypt, or is that something you believe is just not feasible, not going to happen?
Yes, it's not feasible, and it's not going to happen. What we call on is the open of the borders, the crossing, to allow the entry of medical supplies, essential supplies as well, and to stop the evacuation order, which is unbelievable, and it's against to all international humanitarian laws. Civilians should not pay the cost of this escalation. They have the right to live. As we said, people don't have the way to evacuate themselves with this great destruction, and asking people to evacuate themselves under continuous bombardment is simply unbelievable.
Nibal, thank you for your time. We have to leave it there, but please come back to the program and keep us up to speed about the situation in Gaza. Thank you very much, Nibal Farsakh, speaking to us from Ramallah. Doug Herbert, our international affairs commentator, you'll be coming back a bit later in the program.